Hi, I'm Karch Kiraly, head coach of the USA Women's National Indoor Team. And we're going to talk a little about how you can improve your, what we would call pin attacker effectiveness. Well, I'm calling it here pin attacker upgrades. So let's dive right in. First, I've got three main things for you, three main concepts for you to focus on. The one would be what we call our hitter checklist. And of course, I will explain what that means, but that's something that you can do before the play even starts to be more prepared, because it's difficult to make fast decisions as the ball's in the air. Next, we have what we would call hitter transition, especially when you come down from a blocking position, but also from defense. How do you get ready to attack? Go from block and defense to attack. And then third, we have what we call our hitter toolkit. And if you can have more tools in your kit, you can actually have more answers to the problem that is the other team across the net, the block and defense. So we'll go to the hitter checklist first. We have three parts to that. First one's pretty easy. That's called, we just say, what's my route? Now, when your team is receiving serve, that's easy. Most outside hitters might say, I'm going to hit on the left side. We call it a go, something faster, maybe something slower. Every team has names for these sets. And if you're an opposite, maybe hitting on the other side of the court, same thing. It's easy to not be on the same page as your setter, though. So it's also easy to fix. Talk to your setter. Make sure you're on the same page and both of you know what route you're running before the other team serves the ball. So that's key. And if the rally goes on, you're the one who needs to be really loud for your setter and let your setter know what route you're running. So number one, what's my route? Be really clear on that and have your teammates be clear also. Next is, who are the blockers across the net? Look across and figure out, all right, who might likely be blocking against me when I actually do attack. It's important to pay attention to those different people and their strengths and weaknesses. And then third, the question would be, where is my giveaway? Giveaway is a term that we use if we don't have a really good chance to take a big swing, to try to score a point directly. How do I cause the most trouble across the net? All right, so we'll look at a couple of examples here on the screen. We're going to go through our hitter checklist. So I'm getting my cursor hovering around Michelle Bartsch, who was one of our outsides at the Tokyo Olympics. She looks across the net on her hitter checklist. First of all, she knows she's probably hitting what we call a go. Then she looks across, who are the blockers? Well, she's got a very tall Serbian opposite who is a good blocker, because not only is she tall, but she jumps well. So Bartsch, as we call her, should be aware of that. And then she also sees a middle who's a high-flying middle. So this is not going to be a weak block against her. On the other side on the other sideline, we have our opposite, Annie Drews, and she can look over and see, all right, the blocker right in front of me, the wing blocker, isn't going to probably be as efficient or as effective as those other two. That's really helpful to know. Then they also can take a look at, okay, I talked about it before, where's the giveaway? So for Bartsch, she might want to, if she doesn't have a chance for a kill, she might want to get the ball to the Serbian setter to take her out of the play, so the setter can't run the offense anymore. Annie probably doesn't want to get the ball to their best defensive player. That's usually what's usually the case with the person who wears the different colored jersey, the Libero or the Libero, or as we say, the bro. So Annie will want to keep it somewhere else. She might even want to put it, if she did tip over the block, she might want to get the Serbian opposite on the floor. Let's look at one more example. Okay, so when we're serving, it's still also important to take a look across the net and see who your blockers might be and where we can cause the most trouble. A thing that might jump out here is Bartsch can look across the net and see that the Dominican setter, who is not the strongest blocker, will be against her if we actually come up with a dig and get her the set. So that's a really good thing for Bartsch to know, and then she won't have to remember it as the rally is going on. So again, to review, hitter checklist, 3 things. What's my route? Who are the blockers across the net? And where can I cause the most trouble with a giveaway if I don't have a chance to go for the point, go for the kill? Next, let's go to hitter transition. Certainly a big question is it more about effort or is it more about technique? Like what steps do I take, how many? And really what it boils down to, and you'll see in some of the video that I show you, is that it's much more about effort than about having perfect or great technique. This is something that you can control. Just like you can control the hitter checklist, you can control your effort. And massive effort means you're going to get more chances, put yourself in a position to do good things with a good set, but also good things with a bad set or a tough set. One thing to remember is if you're blocking, come down running. As soon as you come down, just get going. Think like somebody on your team is going to come up with the ball, and the faster you get back and ready to attack, the better position you'll be in and the more good you can do for your team as an attacker. All right, so we'll take a look at some transition here. And again, some of these are not perfect technique at all, but it's just about effort. So let's take a look here at this transition effort. First one is Jordan Larson in the middle. She actually hesitates a little, but then sprints off. And look at that, she gets herself a great swing. I'll show it to you again in slow motion. First, she has to block in the middle of the court. That's a long way from where she has to attack. Then she realizes, whoa, the dig came up. She sprints back to her blocking position. Yeah, she could have done it a little faster. She could have come down more on the run. But just the work she put into that made it so that she can be a much better attacker. Now we'll watch 2 hitters sprinting off. One was Bartsch, who was playing on the floor, and the other was Annie Drews. So Annie Drews on the block. She's going to sprint off. Here comes Bartsch from the middle of the court. And now by the time our Libero, our bro Justine is setting, look at those 2 hitters. They were ready to take a great swing. One more time, Jordan Larson sprinting in transition. Look how awkward this is. There's no perfect technique here. She has to get out of the way of the ball, which she does. It's not pretty, but what made it work is her effort. And then she ends up with the kill. So again, it's far more about effort than about perfect technique. Effort is something that is always completely under your control. And we go to our hitter toolkit, the third thing that is completely under your control as a hitter. We often, if we have it, if there's a hole in the block and you can see it, we often swing for that. We call that daylight, swinging for daylight. And when we have it, it's a good thing to do, to swing for that daylight a lot. But what happens if there's no daylight? That's where we want to have a whole set of different solutions and answers to that, what we would call the problem of a well-formed block. And so a good question to ask yourself is, what new solutions can I create? What new solutions can I experiment with, play with in practice, and then eventually get so comfortable that I can use them in a match? So those are good things to think about. And part of that is a lot of times with a well-formed block, most teams think, ooh, that's a strength. And hitters think, uh-oh, I better stay away from it. But one of the beauties of some of these answers, some of the tools in your kit, is that you can turn their strength, their block, into your strength and actually use it and take that strength away from them. So let's take a look at some hitter toolkit work in action here. I'm going to show you a few different answers. Again, this is from the Olympics in Serbia. First, in this rally, we get a great swing. Annie swung for daylight and she caused trouble. Now our setter took the ball. They have a much better block. And look at that. Bartsch reflects the ball back. We call that recycling. What a great answer. She didn't go for the kill. She gets it back. We'll see it in slow motion again. Here is that block. Remember, I told you before in the in the checklist, she saw, whoa, that's going to be a big block. So she turns their strength into ours and brings the ball right back, recycles it. We get the next swing instead of them. We love that. Another well-formed block because we were in a broken play again. And what does Annie do? She tips, but she knew the Libero was there, so she tipped away from the Libero. Here's another chance. Great set by our setter, Micah Hancock, and Bartsch with a different answer. Watch this time. Again, a pretty well-formed block because this is a broken play by us, but can we squeeze a great swing out of it? Absolutely. Watch Bartsch just rip this ball high off the fingers. No answer for that. We turn their block into our strength. And then another time, here comes another broken play. And what happens? Again, Jordan working really hard. In fact, I think I might have shown you this play in terms of the transition part of it. Now watch in terms of the answer. And watch Jordan just for a second here. She's going to take her eye off the ball, then back on. She looked at where the defense was, and she chipped it down the line. That's another great way to score is through this chip. And then finally, one more different answer, different toolkit. Push the ball into the block, and again, turn their strength into our strength. Most hitters who are younger will just throw this ball and hope it hits something on the way out of bounds. But instead, Annie is more purposeful here. We want this set to go close. She knows we're going to try to do that. And then she pushes it into the hands and throws it out of bounds. What great answers executed by our hitters there. So I even have a little quiz for you. I showed you some solutions that our hitters used. There are plenty more of those, but a good thing to ask yourself is, what other ones could I bring to bear? Think about some of the situations you've been in where maybe the block was just too difficult to contend with, or you were stuck in a position where you just didn't have much vision. What are some of the things that you could create? And then try to find some time in training, maybe work with your coach to have some experimentation time to be able to work on these new solutions. The solutions that you saw here, they are not making those up for the first time in the Olympics. They want to do that when they're actually home at practice in our home gym and screw it up a lot, because that's a part of learning, and practice those until they become much more comfortable with that. So to review, 3 ways that you can upgrade your attacker solutions. 1 is your hitter checklist. You can quiz yourself on the 3 parts to that checklist. Number 2, transition, and I have work underlined here because that's the key. Far more than technique is just working your tail off to get available. So your setter or anybody else on the court who has to set the ball can get you something that you can swing at. And then finally, what else can you add to your hitter toolkit? Those are the 3 parts or 3 great opportunities for you to upgrade as an attacker.